guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Tanya if you are new here. This is my daughter Savannah. And today
we have Milo.
No, today is going to be my birth stories video. I have been talking about doing this video for a very long time. I almost recorded it one day in the car and then I didn't because everything kept going wrong. And then I was gonna do it earlier today in my bedroom because my son was in the kitchen doing class, but I couldn't really, Savannah was in there with me. We could not figure out how to get the camera set up like to work. It just wasn't
and for us to be comfortable.
Yeah, because I'm not comfortable sitting on a bed. It sounds weird, I know, but I'm not.
So I remember it very clearly. So I was really hungry and I was tired of eating what she ate because she didn't feed me when I was in the womb. So I was like, I'm done with this. And she laid down in the hospital bed and I crawled through and I tore her in half.
The end.
I remember it all.
All right. Oh, and if you haven't yet, click subscribe. We do a lot of fun videos on this channel. Speaking of this channel, I was thinking that since I prefer doing videos with other people in the video with me, I should just change the name of my channel from being my name to something like Meet the Snickles.
Meet the Snickles.
Meet the Snickles.
Snickle my pickle.
That's gross.
Tickle my snickle. Tickle my snickle. Snickle for a nickel.
If you're curious, Snickle is actually our last name spelled backwards. That's where Snickle comes from. So, okay, I'm gonna tell both my birth stories. My birth of my son was much more eventful than Savannah, but her story is worth telling too. So let's see, I was induced with her at 38 weeks along. They wanted to induce me 2 weeks early because I was starting to get high blood pressure. So I went in at midnight the night before and they induced me. I had her the following morning at like 11:30 in the morning, 11:36. And okay, so the thing about having her that sucked was you have to get IVs put in when you're in labor. My cat's meowing. And so they first did it in my right arm, and I don't know if this girl was just not experienced or what, but she did it wrong and then blood splurt everywhere. It was so bad. So then they had to do it in the other arm, which was awful because that's the same arm I had the cuff on. So like it would go like squeeze your arm every 15 seconds and at the same time it's squeezing the IV in my arm and it hurt so bad. Hi, baby. So anyway, that was awful. And on top of that, I was at, I'm not going to say the names of these hospitals, but there are 2 hospitals in the town I live in. The one I had Savannah in was just awful. It's an awful place to give birth. Jeez, Tika. So then so when you're induced, even if you're not dilated very far, the pain is about double of what it would normally be because inducing causes more pain. So when I was dilated to about, I think a 3 or a 4, I was like, oh my God, I need an epidural or something. It hurts so bad. And they're like, it's too early for that. So we're going to give you this medicine in your IV instead. And they gave it to me. And my husband goes, did it stop hurting? And I said, no, but I don't care that it hurts. Like that's what it did. Like I could still feel the pain, but I didn't care that I felt pain. That's all that did. But eventually I had to get the epidural. And it's a good thing that I did because when I had Savannah, I only pushed 15 minutes tops. And she was my first. The thing that I was most afraid of giving birth was an episiotomy. I was like, I do not ever, ever, ever want an episiotomy. Don't ever cut me down there. But apparently they needed to do that. So my doctor cut me just the tiniest little bit. And then she told me to push. So I pushed. And at the same time, the doctor grabbed Savannah and pulled her out and just ripped me all the way open. All the way open. It was awful. If I did not have an epidural during that, I think I would have died. Like, it was the 3rd-degree tear, like the worst you could get. It was so bad. My husband said that it was the grossest thing he had ever seen in his life. So yeah, I had to have stitches and all this stuff. Also, apparently I don't think anybody at the hospital is trained to do their jobs, because they kept trying to get me for like an hour or two after that to go to the bathroom. They're like, you need to go to the bathroom. And I was like, but I don't have to go. Like, I don't feel like I had to pee at all. And then the doctor came back and like yelled at everybody and was like, what is wrong with you people? I gave her such and such medicine, and this medicine paralyzes the bladder. If she has to go, she doesn't feel that she has to go. So then they gave me a catheter and whatever. But that's basically my birth story with her. I do have one other thing that happened that was bad though. Yeah.
I have a question. Did you ever try to induce labor yourself? Like, you know how they say, like, you can do certain things that'll make the baby come faster?
Yes, because when I was pregnant with you, I was so uncomfortable, and I was so fat, and I was so moody all the time. So I tried having sex. I tried walking, but I didn't walk very well. But I didn't walk when I was pregnant with her. I waddled. I was so fat. I was so huge with her. And they were like, you can try spicy foods, but I don't do spicy, so I didn't do that one. So yeah. The other bad thing that happened in the hospital was I can't remember if it's like later the same day or the next day when they take the very first newborn picture. They need the baby's eyes to be open for the newborn picture, and this lady who was doing it was trying to get Savannah to open her eyes, and she was holding her like this and kept going like this with her head to get her to open her eyes. And I remember I was so drugged up. I was so drugged up because of my tear and all this stuff, and I just distinctly remember sitting there, and it looked like it was happening in slow motion. And I just remember being like, you gotta stop. You can't do that. Like, I was young, but I still knew you're not supposed to shake a baby. Like, who is this person? Oh, the other thing.
That's why I'm dumb, guys.
Oh, excuse me. The other thing is,
ew, nasty.
The other thing is, apparently they have, like a class of people who were going to be nursery doctors or something like that. And so they were bringing these students around the nursery area, and they would bring a couple of babies out at a time to the hall for the kids to stand around, and the doctors would talk about the babies or whatever. And they had asked, do you want your child to be one of them? And we said no. And a few minutes later, my husband went down the hallway for whatever reason, and my daughter was out in the hall in her bed with all the students surrounding her, and we went off. Like, we were like, we said no. Like, why would you do that? Why would you even ask then if you're just gonna ignore our wishes? So that was that experience. The experience with Skylar was so different. Like, beginning to end, so different. And that sounds bad enough, like everything I went through with Savannah, but it was bad with Skylar. The only good thing about it was my pregnancy with Skylar was great. Like, I was not the same person pregnant with Skylar that I was with Savannah. When I was pregnant with Skylar, I was still really small. I only gained weight in my stomach, and I had a lot of energy. I was always happy. I would just go visit family, and I would go to my grandma's a lot, and I would just be like, I'm just in the mood to go visit grandma, and I'm gonna go hang out, and we're gonna have fun. Like, I was just always happy. And Savannah can actually, I guess, talk more during this because she remembers. She remembers when Skylar was born. She was almost 4 when he was born. So what happened was, I was 36 weeks along, and I had a doctor's appointment to go to. It was just my regular 36-week checkup. And I went in, and me, my husband, and Savannah were all sitting in the waiting room. It was like noon, and I hadn't had breakfast that day, and it was just one of those, like, we'll just get a bite to eat for lunch after the doctor's appointment sort of thing. And like an hour later, I was still waiting in the waiting room, and I was increasingly getting more and more pissed off that we're just waiting and waiting for this doctor's appointment, and I was hungry, and I kept having contractions, and I was just like, I don't know, I was just mad because I was waiting for so long. They finally called my name. We went back, and she was asking questions, and I was like, yeah, I had this contraction that won't go away. Like, at that point, I don't know if it was because I was so mad or what, but the contraction wasn't like a contraction that went away contraction. It was just a straight contraction that did not go away. It was like stuck. It was just like a contraction for, it had been at least 15 minutes, I think, and it had not gone away yet. And so I was like, yeah, it hurts really bad. It's not going away. So she started feeling my stomach. She's like, oh yeah, you have a major contraction. And the look on her face went from being like her normal self to like full of concern. And she couldn't get my contraction to ease. And then she took out the stethoscope and started listening for heartbeat. And she was like, I can't find your son's heartbeat. And there is nothing in the world that has ever scared me more, ever, than that. Like, all I kept thinking was, I have a dead baby in me. And so she's like, we need to rush you down to the hospital right now. So she threw me in a wheelchair. We all took off running down this hallway. And all I kept thinking was, I'm about to go give birth to a dead baby. I'm about to give birth to a dead baby. That's all that was in my head. And it's like I forgot that my husband and Savannah were with me, and they were running behind us. And I guess you remember that, right? Sort of.
I mean, I have like bits and pieces of memory from that day. Like, I had no idea what was going on. I mean, probably because I was 4, but like I didn't even know she was about to give birth or like anything. I was like so confused. I remember just being really confused.
Yeah.
I don't really remember running that much, but I just remember like when you guys got to the room, the nurse was like taking my hand, was like, you're gonna come with me, sweetie. And I was like, why can't I go with my mom? I want to go with my mom and dad in the room. Like, I was so like confused because I was just this little kid, and I was 3 at the time, actually.
Well, your dad,
almost 4.
Your dad
like,
didn't go in the room either.
Well, whatever. I was confused because I was like,
yeah. I mean,
I want to go see my mommy.
That would be really scary and confusing for a 3-year-old to go through that. That would be.
Yeah.
I couldn't even imagine. But so they have me go into this operating room, and right at the door they're like, just drop your pants and underwear. And I was like, okay. So I did that.
Take off your clothes.
Yeah. And then they're like, get on this bed, da da da, and they weren't letting my husband in, and I didn't understand why they wouldn't let him in, but he couldn't go in. So she's like, all right, I have to break your water, and you're having this baby today. And I was like, okay. But first, she wanted to see if she could find his heartbeat, and thank God she did eventually find his heartbeat. So, because that was the room where you do C-sections, and I think that their plan was that, oh, he's dead, or his heart stopped beating, or whatever, they're gonna do a C-section and get him out. But since she found his heartbeat, they're like, we're gonna break your water. So they did that, and it was the weirdest feeling, because with Savannah, I never had my water break, ever. It was so weird. It was so weird, because when I was in labor with her, they sent in a doctor to break my water, and she went to do it, and they're like, are you sure your water didn't break already? And I was like, no. And they're like, well, there's nothing in there. I was like, the only thing I can think is that maybe I peed it out, thinking that I was just peeing in a toilet. I've heard that happen, that people just pee thinking that they're just peeing, and they're actually relieving all their water. I don't know, but that's...
You would be the one to do that.
Yeah.
Because you take long pees anyway.
Yeah, so... Yeah, so they broke my water, and they were like, okay, we're gonna give you an epidural right here now. And it was in the early afternoon, and I was thinking, wow, it's so weird that they're giving me an epidural so early, because when I was pregnant with her, like, I had to wait until I was in super pain before they would give it to me. So then they give me my own room, and then I don't know why I had so many issues when I was in labor with him, but like I couldn't lay on my back because it was affecting his heartbeat. So I had to every 15 minutes turn over to a different side. They had to give me an oxygen mask, which I hated. That I think that was the worst part of everything. Like I felt so weird with an oxygen mask on. Isn't that weird? Like that was the one thing that bugged me. Like why do I have to wear this
Out of all,
stupid, like why do I have to wear this stupid thing on my face? Like I hated it.
out of everything, that's what bothered you the most?
No, I mean a lot of things bothered me, but that really was, I don't know, it was annoying. The contractions were really painful, and I was there in labor for hours, and the epidural wore off, and so I kept saying I need them to do another epidural because I can feel everything again. It hurts. And they're like, no, you know, it's too early, this and that. Oh, another thing that happened too was my mom and my older sister came in the room for a little while, and they knew that I hadn't eaten all day. And they came in with Big Macs, and they were eating in front of me. And, or actually, I don't even know if my sister was, my mom was. I was like, that's so mean. I hate you guys. I mean, it was like, I didn't have Skylar until 9:26 at night. So this was an all day thing. And around 9 o'clock, I kept saying, I need an epidural, da-da-da. And they checked to see how far along dilated I was. And they're like, you're only a 5. Like, you got time. And then not even 5 minutes later, not even, I yelled at my husband. I said, oh my God, you need to go out there and get somebody right now and bring them in here. And he's like, what? And I'm like, he's coming out, like right now. And he's like, are you sure? I'm like, he is coming out right now. You need to go get somebody. And so he goes and gets someone. They start to come in. Actually, I jumped ahead. They actually did eventually finally give me an epidural right before that moment of, right after they said I was at a 5. They went ahead and gave me another epidural, but it never kicked in. They went and got somebody that came in, and they're like, oh, honey, you were just at a 5 minutes ago, you know, da-da. And they checked, and they're like, oh my God, his head is right there. You're a 10. I went from 5 to 10 in 5 minutes. That is so painful. I had no epidural. The epidural that they had given me 5 minutes before that had not taken effect yet. So I felt everything, and it was the worst pain. It was the worst freaking pain. And so they were getting prepped, and they were like, oh, we need to go call your doctor because she wasn't there. It was 9:30 at night. And so they called her real quick. She flew over there, and she had her 2 little boys with her, and they were in their PJs. And she had them sit at the nurse's station, and she comes in the room wearing a full evening gown. She was about ready to go to like a fancy dinner or party or something, and she was like dressed to the nines, really gorgeous. And so she goes in front of me, and she's like, all right, you know, and they're like, doctor, don't you want to like maybe put on some scrubs or something? And she's like, you know, I guess it could get messy. Maybe I'll do that. And she was like so ho-hum about it, like whatever. Yeah, she's the coolest doctor. But yeah, I pushed twice and Skylar came out. That was it. He was already coming out on his own, so that was crazy. But that was some terrible pain. And since I had ripped before and had the episiotomy, I did rip again, but this one was much less severe. I still had stitches, but it was much less severe. So, yeah. You ended up, for a little while, hanging out at the nurse's station at the doctor's office, and then somebody came and picked you up, I think, right?
I think so. Okay. So, like, I think I have memories from it, but if I get a detail wrong, it's because I was 3 years old, okay? So, like, I don't know if my memories are even that accurate, to be honest, but I just remember, like, the nurse took my hand, took me to, like, an area where there were other nurses, I guess, like the nurse's station or whatever, I guess, and I waited there for a little bit, and then I think Peepaw, my grandpa, picked me up, right, and took me to his house, and I spent the night there, I think.
For some reason, I thought my mom picked you up and dropped you off over there, but
I don't remember. I spent the night at my grandpa's house.
I could be wrong about that, though,
think.
because I also wasn't even around when all of that was going on. I was
Yeah.
in the room.
Yeah, I spent the night at his house in my Dora Explorer bed
yeah.
sheets.
And I remember the next day when they were getting ready to bring you up to see me and Skylar for the first time. I remember, okay, my husband did not stay in the hospital with me when I had Skylar, and I was so upset about that. Like, I was so mad at him because he's off at his dad's house with his whole family in Savannah, and they're all like having a grand time, and I'm at the hospital by myself with a newborn that's a preemie, and they both had jaundice, so I had to deal with jaundice with both of them. Poor Skylar had like all these, he had all these IVs in his arms, because since I hadn't really had my 36-week checkup like I was supposed to while I was there were tests that they weren't able to give me, and so as a precaution, they had to give him antibiotics. So it was so sad to see this tiny little peanut with all these wires on him. He was the tiniest little thing too. He was 5 pounds, 6 ounces, and he was only 16 inches long. He was so tiny. Like, you could hold him like this. Savannah was little too. She was 7 pounds, 6 ounces. But you were, I think, like 20 inches long. Yeah, so I was sitting there. I think I remember it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I was writing in his baby book and crying because I was alone. I was like, my husband didn't even stay here with me. It's so mean. But I remember the next day I was like, before you bring her up, make sure she's wearing matching clothes and brush her hair.
You didn't trust it?
I had good reason not to. Because not only did you show up with your hair not brushed, you were also not wearing matching clothes.
Really? Is it that hard?
I guess. Leave it to a dad and his dad to dress you.
Especially them, the Elkins family.
Yeah. It was not good.
I don't remember any of that. I don't remember meeting Skylar. Like, I have no memory of that at all. What did I do?
I don't know. I think that you just acted like any 3 or 4-year-old, like excited that it's your brother, and gave him a kiss probably. And oh, the other thing that was really bad after I had you was the medicine that they had given me to block the pain where I couldn't pee. It's like a version of morphine or something, and it makes you itch so freaking bad. And this is what I remember, scratching myself, but the stories that were told to me were, I would be laying there in bed, barely even awake. I'd be like this, and I'd be like reaching down and just scratching the crap out of my legs while I'm like halfway asleep, and just bleeding from scratching so much. Yeah, they eventually had to start giving me, on top of that, Benadryl directly into my IV, which then would just put me out.
Bruh, I changed his diaper.
She did.
By choice.
Yeah, she wanted to.
I wanted to help all the time. Not anymore.
Yeah, she was a good big sister. Where's his birth story? I had to stay in the hospital one day longer with him since he was a preemie. Being 4 weeks early, a friend of mine had actually gone and like went to all these like secondhand stores trying to find any preemie clothes they had, just because we knew nothing was gonna fit him. So she showed up at the hospital with like a bag full of like preemie clothes so that he at least had something to wear. The other weird thing about that is the day that he was born, my best friend at the time, that was the day that she was supposed to go in and get induced and have her baby. So she went in to be induced and whatever, and I was like, yeah, I have a doctor's appointment later today. I'll come by the hospital and see you later. But then Joe called her later and was like, Tonia is having birth, or giving birth today.
Having birth.
She's giving birth today, and of course, Joe is, he's a big liar, so she didn't believe him. And he's like, no, really, she was literally 2 rooms down from me in the same hospital having her baby the same time I was having my baby. So that was really cool. All the nurses, I think, thought that was really cool too. Like 2 best friends having babies on the exact
So
same
lucky.
day.
Because even with me, like, you were pregnant with your cousin at the same time and 4 months apart.
Yeah, me and that girl are not friends anymore. But when I was pregnant with Savannah, so some of you probably heard me say this. I have over 20 cousins. I have like 25 first cousins or something like that. There's so many I can't even count them. And so a lot of us would hang out in our own age groups. So we had our own favorite cousins, our own friend, built-in friend. And me and my cousin Leah are only 11 months apart. Our mothers are sisters, and they were best friends. So me and Leah grew up as best friends. And she was pregnant at the exact same time with her first child that I was with Savannah, and she gave birth 2 months after I gave birth. Because I remember her coming to the hospital after I had you, and she was super pregnant, and I think your Aunt Kimmy brought like a cake, like a birthday cake, like, because it was your first birthday.
Oh.
And I distinctly remember Leah sitting there pregnant eating birthday cake.
For my first birthday.
Because that was your day of birth.
But I wasn't 1 yet.
No, but it was like
It was my 0th birthday.
Whatever. God.
My 0th birthday.
0th.
You know how lucky that makes you?
Why?
Because a bunch of friends want to get, like, pregnant at the same time, and you had it basically twice.
We didn't do it on purpose. None of us. Though.
Yeah, which is why you're lucky.
Me and my older sister were pregnant at the same time, too, when I was pregnant with Savannah. But,
He came way before me.
yeah, I mean, he came in January of that year, and she was born in August of that year. So I was only, like, 4 weeks pregnant. Well, I think this video is long enough. I can't think of anything else really that goes along with these stories, so. But there's my birth stories. They were awful, awful, awful. Skylar was a terrible baby also. Savannah was a good baby.
He had colic.
Skylar had colic. It was bad. And I think that he still has colic and he's 12.
Bruh.
Leave me some comments down below. Let me know what your birth stories were like. If you had a good experience, bad experience. Leave me a like. Subscribe if you haven't done that already. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye, poopies!